You can't get rid of me that quick.
Okay, while we have a few more minutes, we were going to take the opportunity to ask Don some questions, just a few questions about how things are going. We'll start out with, we saw your dad recently on Gutfield, just on fire, right?
Thank you.
The guy has more energy than anybody I could imagine that's covering this much ground, this much territory, every corner of the nation. The Long Island Arena, New York rally, incredible turnout. How's your dad doing? Tell us about him.
He's doing great, actually. Again, his resolve is just strengthened. He sees it, and for better or worse, this is now my third rodeo, and I'm the guy that, goes on the ground. We spoke about it a little bit earlier. They're like, well, were you there with your dad? I'm like, no. Like, if I'm, like, one Trump in a room is enough. The problem you see with politics, everyone wants to sort of be around him because they get to be in the picture. They get to seem like they're, credible. Then they use that picture to be like, look how close I am to Trump. Why don't you pay me $10,000 a month to, support your campaign, even if they're morons, right? And there's a lot of morons in this game. So, I don't spend that much time with them. I talk to them often. I get involved where it matters, and I sort of keep my head down and do what I do best elsewhere. But as the guy that's on the ground a lot, and just for October 2020, I did 104 sort of rallies like this myself. So like 4 a day, 31 days straight. So I always did probably just as much, if not more, in 16, because COVID was making it even harder. Still 4 days a lot. It's kind of, my voice at the end of that one was brutal. But the enthusiasm I see on the ground now is unlike anything I've ever seen. And it's not coming from the usual suspects. There's people that run up to me that I'm looking and I'm saying, oh boy, like I'm going to get attacked or I'm going to get yelled at or they're like, and it's like, please win. You have to win. Because people are getting it. They're not believing their lying eyes. They're not believing, Bidenomics is working for America. I saw that myself. Last summer I took my kids, two of my boys on a, father-son sort of fishing trip. We came back and it was my 10-year-old at the time and my 14-year-old. And we went to McDonald's, and we ordered, for a 10-year-old, a 14-year-old, and me, and it was $48. And I was like, you know what? If Donald Trump Jr. has sticker shock at McDonald's, it's a problem. Like, I'm not saying it's changing my habits, but, if I'm like, damn, that's expensive, like, people are getting crushed. And I think people recognize that. Yeah. People understand from every demographic that we are worse off now than we were 4 years ago. So, he sees that, he feels it, he's out there a lot, and he sees that. They literally, I think they turned away like 18,000 people in New York.
Right.
Turned away. They filled an arena, and then they turned away another 18,000. They were watching on TVs outside. In New York. Yeah. Going up the streets in Manhattan, which is, right. Just so we're clear, Manhattan is a little bit left of this area right here. Yeah. Like 90 points left. Yeah. And they're lining the streets cheering for him. They understand the political persecution. They understand the lies. They see that all this stuff turned out to be nonsense. It's not going to stop the Democrats from doing anything, but I think he feels that. And again, as someone who, he doesn't need this job. After 2020, he knows he could have just walked away and just, gone quietly, and they probably would have left him alone. And it's just not his style. So he feels really good about where it is right now. He's just excited to fix things because we need a lot of fixing.
Well, it's incredible how much stamina he has and the fortitude that he has to work day in and day out on behalf of this country. And it's, while Kamala schedules fake rallies with the leftist media and 15 people in a studio audience.
Yeah. I think the record is something like my father has been almost assassinated as many times as Kamala Harris has done interviews. And then, the woman that's all about woman power, then she needs to bring on her little clown sidekick, Tim Walz. I don't know. If you want to lead the free world, I think it's perfectly fine if a competent woman's doing that. I think that's wonderful. Why does she need the man sidekick on an interview? You'd think you'd be able to do one of these by yourself, but minor details.
You would think so.
Or not have Oprah as the ringleader trying to, cheer it on, but apparently not.
As he's speaking for her over her shoulder time and time again. Look, I think it's incredible that she chose who she chose, Waltz, for a vice presidential candidate, as the public in the stretch of the final weeks learns more and more about both of them.
Yeah.
It's going to be very telling. Tell us about JD Vance.
Oh, JD's great. I mean, I'm actually really looking forward to that debate as well. Like, I mean, JD is a good friend of mine, became a good friend over the last few years. I think I expended about 175% of my political capital this cycle to get that to be the VP pick. Just like, I got to know him for a long time. It was interesting. I read his book. I read Hillbilly Elegy when it first came out, and I was like, wow, like we need a guy like this in politics. Like, just like the ultimate sort of rags to riches American dream story. Like, it can still be done, folks. It's just not going to be done by a Kamala Harris.
That's right.
Where they just need to create permanent dependence. So we'll put you on a government program. You'll never get out of the poverty. But, JD's done that. And then when it came out initially, that it was like, oh, he doesn't like Trump. And I was like, what's going on here? We sort of got introduced by some friends after that. I'm like, what? But he was the first guy to be like, as vocal as he was against those things when the policy started working, when this thing started being real. Like, by the way, I get it. If like you were skeptical of Trump, like, you mean the billionaire from New York City is going to be like the savior of the conservative movement? I was like, I don't know. Even I was skeptical, okay? Because like my father's always like, you're like a right-wing extremist, Don. I'm like, pretty conservative, but not that bad. But he was the first guy that didn't just sort of say, okay, fine. Like so many of the rhinos, fine, we'll accept Trump, I'll fundraise off of him, I'll use him to get elected, and then I'll turn on him when JD was like, I was wrong. He's right. Trump's right. Like, these policies, he got there on his own and did that. And I respect that because we can change. We can change our opinions. So, I got to know him really well prior to his Senate run. And that cycle, I used up basically all of my political capital trying to get my father to endorse him. In that race then, even in the primary, I think I did pretty good because I think, the only problem with JD Vance as vice president is he's the #1 person we have in the United States Senate by far, so I don't love that, but I think it's such a great model for, future Republicans to emulate. And so he's been great. He's just a great friend, and on it, like, it's great. The first 10 days, they were as vicious to him as you could possibly imagine. I'm saying, I'm going to get a lot of heat for this. But literally every Sunday, when I watch him do all 3 of the radical leftist communist Sunday shows and just eviscerate these morons on their home turf, I'm like, yep, I was right. And the billionaire powers that be, and the rhino power brokers, and some of the rhinos that control conservative media, that were all, I'm like, I was right. They weren't even close. This is, like, he's been incredible. So I'm super psyched to have him on the take. I'm also psyched to have someone of his ability, talent, and youth, he's younger than me, on the ticket, because it means that maybe for the first time I actually feel a little confident that we have a bench, that can carry sort of America first beyond today.
That's exactly right. And speaking of developing a bench, we're here at the Texas Youth Summit, and our first time and young voters, I don't think they really realize for the conservative movement and for the reelection of the president how important they are. Speak to them on how important it is for them to engage, work, and become future office holders.
100%. And you guys are the future. You guys, by the way, you're also the rebels. To the young conservatives in the crowd, you're the guys that are like going against the machine. Like, I can assure you, like the left, they sort of claim this, we're different and we're unique and we're great. Like, no. Like, if you're siding with corporate media, each and every one of your professors, Hollywood pedophile billionaires, like, you're not anything unique. Like, you guys have guts to actually do this. And I think anyone in this room who's maybe a little older than the youngest generation knows that I'm not just saying this because, like, well, now's the time I'm going to try to reach out to young guys. I've been speaking, I think this is my 4th year at Texas Youth Summit. I think I was the first guy, like, I picked up Charlie Kirk from Turning Point USA when he was like 21, and I literally, a good friend of mine, 2 guys from Texas actually introduced me to Charlie. Like, you got to meet this guy. He knows everything about politics. I'm like, oh, give me some details. Well, he's 21. I'm like, wait, what? Like, guys, like, we already don't know anything. Like the biggest joke I had in the campaign was when they started Russia collusion. I'm like, we know so little about politics at this stage. Like, we couldn't collude to order a cheeseburger. But then I took the time and I sat down with him because I believed in that youth and that movement. And I was like, now he's out there registering people in Arizona and Wisconsin. And what Christian here is doing in Texas, it's incredible. And guess what? The biggest gains we've made in any demographic. Like, we're winning, especially young males.
Right.
We're winning Gen Z. Who had that on their bingo card?
Exactly.
Because you guys want to be able to have a job. Most of you probably want to move out of your parents' house eventually. You want to be able to buy your own home. That's not going to happen in the Democrat Party. It's not going to happen with the policies that jacked up prices, that created inflation, that raised interest rates. It's hard for me to live in a home, and I'm a reasonably spoiled individual. So, the youth is everything, and you guys are absolutely crushing it out there. So when I see, like I saw it this summer, right? The frat boys saving the American flag from hitting the ground as Palestinian pro-terrorist rioters.
Right.
As a former frat boy myself, many have called me a Chad. I'll take it. It's a great compliment. I didn't have us saving the Republic. It's like, we like to chug beers and be a little wild. In my day, definitely did a little bit of that myself. I didn't have that, but those guys are stepping up. They're great patriots, and so it's an honor to see those guys coming up because that's the future of our country. If we can get them. More importantly, if we can get them after 20 years of leftist indoctrination from kindergarten on, from every teacher, from every, I used to speak in college campuses starting in 15 and 16. All right, my first question, hey, if your teachers knew you're here, raise your hand if you think you'd be penalized academically. Every hand in the room went up. Yeah. But they were there, and they're still in it. And that's everything. I mean, to be able to get through that much indoctrination, I just couldn't be more proud of you guys. So thank you so much for doing it. It's an honor to be in the fight with you.
I'm thinking of additional questions. I know we're going to wrap this up and make sure you can stay on time.
We don't care. If we want, we can go a little longer. It's fine.
All right.
Are you guys bored yet? Are we losing people? No? Yeah. Have we lost a single person yet? All right, good.
And I wanted to ask about the border. I'm thinking of these questions as they come to my mind because I'm not wearing earrings that feed them to me, right? If you know what I mean, right? But tell us, as high as border security and national security polls with all Americans, regardless of their political stripes or background, our media push down the stretch is really going to expose Kamala in incredible ways for what they have been miserable failures on that's put us all at risk. Speak to that and how we have a strategy going forward to make sure everyone knows it.
It's so critical. What's interesting now, again, Americans are not believing the media anymore. They're believing what they see each and every day. There's actually a majority of Americans now are for mass deportations because they see the crime, they see the fentanyl, the sex trafficking. It's real. They can't hide from it. Just like, they're trying to pretend, when Kamala Harris imported 5% of Haiti to America and dumped it only into small red towns. You saw what's going on in Springfield. They're not eating cats, which means we're 2 weeks from eating, they're 2 weeks from they're eating cats, but you're racist if you think that's bad. It's really happening. They put 20,000 people into a town of 50,000, 60,000. What do you think's going to happen? So that stuff is happening. Turns out it's happening. But beyond that, those people get free services. They get free health. You and I, we pay insurance premiums. Of course. We pay a deductible. Many of our deductibles are so high, you basically don't even have insurance. Mm-hmm. You have co-pays. You have to be in network, otherwise, you're extra screwed. The illegals, they can go to any hospital in America. They just go in right there, and you get to pay for that too. So then your premiums go up higher because you're paying for other people. And then they say, we're going to give them all driver's licenses. And maybe they grew up in a culture that didn't exactly drive, so they're not so good at it, maybe. Right. And so they're getting into accidents, and they're running into school buses, and they're killing American kids. But then what happens is you're in that town, and you have your truck, and you go to work. Well, now you're in a problem area. So now your car insurance goes up. You didn't get a speeding ticket. You didn't get into an accident. You certainly didn't run over and kill children. You did everything perfectly. But you're paying for the ill actions of others. It's not sustainable anymore. So the border's number one. I heard this the other day. Kamala Harris, she's going to build the wall down. I'm like, she'll put on a MAGA hat like Joe Biden did. Yeah. I think it's Joe Biden finally figured out that she really took him out. He finally figured it out. I think he's probably dislikes her more than most Americans at this point. But now she's going to build a wall. Like, well, why didn't you do that the last time? We bought the materials. We paid for the labor. We did everything. Now we spend like, what, $230 billion a year? A year. Not just a one-time payment to build a wall, which was like another $5 billion. But we pay $200 a year to support people who are likely never supporting themselves. But they'll be reliable Democrat voters. Because they've ostracized so many people in the Hispanic community, so many people in the African-American community with the failed Democrat policies. They say, you know what, rather than fix those policies and do what's good for Americans, we're just going to import more voters. You see it in Texas. I spoke with Ken Paxton a couple weeks ago. He's like, they're giving them licenses and IDs, and then there's a booth outside where they are registering to vote. Even if they can't do it, it's like, you didn't know. We won't prosecute you, but like maybe you show up to vote. They're doing that in Texas. That's why there can be no apathy. They're not going to do anything about the border. They need those dependents because otherwise you'd never be sane enough to vote for Democrat. Did they cut us off?
Maybe so. I'll trade you.
Is that like the hook? Yeah. So I think we all just have to be aware, of what's going on. We have to see that. We cannot fall for the lies that the media will tell us, and like all the other lies. But again, I think people are there. So. I'm really excited about it. I feel like we're better positioned now than we ever have been, let's call it 6 weeks out from an election, but that doesn't mean we can have that apathy. We have to go all in, as I was talking earlier.
Well, your father's plans when he gets back in to drain the swamp, it's something that most Americans are very keyed in on and supportive of, and so I was wondering, would he ask Elon Musk to help him with that commission?
Well, he did. He had that conversation, and Elon did that. Yep. And, Elon has, I'd say he's one of the Einsteins, let's call it, of our era. And, I'm not saying we even agree. I'm not saying he's even said he's a Democrat, but he believes in free speech. He believes in so many of these things. I think he's sort of been red-pilled by the insanity of today's Democrat Party. RFK Jr., I was involved heavily in, getting that endorsement over. And I've spoken to the guy heavily over the last time. And, I'm like, wow, like a guy like that in the FDA or HHS. But think about it. Like, Elon cut 80% of Twitter's workforce, and it got better. I think we can do the same with government. I think we can do the same with government, and we should. But more importantly, as it relates to draining the swamp, it was interesting. Perhaps the one disadvantage of coming in as an outsider back in 2016 was you didn't know. I think my father had spent like a cumulative 2 days in Washington, D.C. in his entire life. You're like, oh, he's a Republican. He must be on our side. He understands, like, he works for me. No, they work for whoever's paying them or whatever board they may end up on. Now we know. And that's why, sort of the uni party, both the Republican rhinos and the Democrat Party are so against my father. I mean, think about it. Like, we live in a time where the Democrats are embracing with glee the Dick Cheney endorsement. I mean, think about it. Like, the guy that they said was a war criminal for the last 30 years. They're like, he's on our side. This is great. I was like, I will take RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, and Elon Musk over Dick and Liz Cheney any day. So that's happening. But now we have that knowledge. We know who are the snakes. We know who are the liars. We know who are the phonies. And that's what scares them the most, because they know those people aren't going to get those positions of power. They're going to be kept out. I'm going to be on the trans. I told my father, he was like, is there anything you'd want to do? I was like, yeah. I just want a veto right. I don't even want to choose a person for a position. I just want to block the bad guys, because there's too many of them.
Wouldn't that be fun?
And I'm going to be on, my brother and I, we're going to be on the transition committee, and I'm going to make damn sure that not a single one of those clowns gets into a position of power.
Wow. For America to be able to watch you and Eric do that we would get a lot of satisfaction out of that. I can tell you that.
I will get so much satisfaction. There will never have been so much satisfaction. Anyway, the Rolling Stones will sing a song about not being able to get enough satisfaction from that one. So yeah, 100%, guys.
Last question. Can your daughter beat your father at golf?
Ooh, I may have to put on my politician's hat on this one. Yeah, no, as I was saying, you know, my daughter, I don't know if some of you guys maybe saw her speak at the RNC.
Incredible, yeah.
So
and her comments about playing golf with her grandfather.
Oh,
really,
yeah, no, you don't get a pass just because you're the granddaughter, right? My father, you know,
we got that.
You know, she's going to get the same treatment as Hillary Clinton if they're not on the same team. Okay, it's you know, that's true. But she was the one that was with me. I told the story about being out on the boat fishing with her and stuff, and you know, you know, I'd never put my daughter in the crosshairs, right? It's just different for me. Like, I'm not going to get the Hunter Biden treatment, you know. You can't talk about Hunter. He's a child of the president. I'm like, he's 52, like, and a crackhead. Like, I'm like, no. Like, you get no hall pass from me. That doesn't absolve you from being a scumbag. It doesn't absolve you from making tens, hundreds, millions of dollars off your father's public office. And so, you know, I know my 17-year-old daughter would not get that same treatment, as evidenced by the, you know, bat crap crazy reaction of the ladies on The View the next day. So they were like, that was a political stunt by Don Jr. I was, no, it wasn't. Like, she's probably spent more time with my father than any Trump because of golf, and you know, she's competitive, and she's just signed with University of Miami. She's only a junior, but she's good enough that they sort of signed her on early. Right. You trying to get me to go? All right. Christian's trying to cut me off, but I'll finish the story. I've never got the hook before, Christian. Like, wow. I blame Christian Collins, okay? Yeah. You're going to have a revolt on your hands here, Christian. Okay. I'm just kidding. He's the best.
He is.
But, so my father got shot on Saturday. The Monday, 2 days later, was the start of the RNC, and I was speaking on Wednesday. And I got a call at like 7 in the morning. I think my daughter's going off to school. It's like, Dad, I want to speak at the RNC. And I think if she came from the People's Republic of New York, so I was like, maybe she's not all that conservative, but, honestly, it wasn't even about politics. She's just so close to him, and she's like, I'm sick of this crap. I've had enough. I want to speak at the RNC. I'm like, well, Kyle, you mean you want your first speech ever? No, honestly, when I was really impressed. I was like, wow, I give you credit for having we'll say, cojones. When I was 17, like, I'd get nervous. I don't have a problem with the mic these days, but, at 17, I'd get nervous standing up in front of my class and trying to, give a speech. Yeah, I don't care. I want to do it. Okay, we'll just go bump some governor for you, Kai. Like, this has kind of been baked for a little while. Let me figure this out. I'll call you back. So, I called my father, and he sort of had a similar reaction initially. He goes, really? Like, that's kind of a big one. And he just thought about it for a second. He was just like, you know what? That kid's a winner. Just let her do it. She'll be great. And she was. And so he understands that she's got that same sort of spirit that he has. And so, in golf, let's say it's going to be close. It's going to be close. I won't go further than that because I value my job. I'd like to be able to be seated at the family table at Thanksgiving and Christmas, but it'd be close. But no, like that was it was an awesome moment for me as a dad. Honestly the love and the amount of people that have commented to me on that one, in the months since, but it was also the most nervous I've ever been on stage, and I didn't even have the mic. I'm like, please, oh God, just don't. But right. So it was both a horrifying dad moment and an incredibly proud dad moment. But, again, it's that resolve. We need a lot more of that. We need a lot more of those guts to stand up for America. So it was pretty special and amazing.
Well, just to wrap up, she certainly grabbed all of our hearts in that speech, and talking about her grandfather and her family, it meant so much to hear that from her, and to hear you talk about her, the way that you all talk about each other. It just shows how blessed we are to have the Trump family working so hard for the future of this country. So with that, I see we have Rafael Cruz on the front row here, which is Texas political royalty, and I'm such a huge fan of yours, Rafael. We've got from our United States Senator Ted Cruz that we are working so hard along with the effort to get your father reelected. We're working hard to get Senator Cruz reelected as well. And Senator Cruz sent a gift tonight to you, and so I'm going to hand you a pair of handmade boots from Pines Boot Company in Fort Worth, Texas. And I'd like you to open them and tell the audience what it says on the boots.
Oh, look at this. Oh, I love it. Trump, take America back, 2024, baby. Oh, thank you, guys. And yeah, we do have to get, and to talk about Ted for a second, just because it is so important. We became pretty good friends, and that was a rough time early in 16.
Right.
And shortly after, sort of, we clinched the nomination. It was a little bit, I get it. Trust me, like no one understands that. And, I may or may not have some vindictive genes. But Tommy Hicks, who was RNC co-chair, great Texan, really good friend of mine, he invited me to sort of one of these DC rubber chicken, mostly rhino dinners.
Right.
Ray Washburn, another great Texan, good friend of mine, was there. And they're like, come sit at the table. It was AEI, whatever, one of these.
Right.
And I go there and I sit down, and everyone sort of looks really uncomfortable. And I'm like, I haven't noticed yet the name next to me. And they put me next to Ted Cruz. This is 6 weeks, 6 weeks after the primary. I'm like, oh, God, this is going to be, and we sit down, and it was a little awkward at first. And then we started talking, very cordial, great. Dinner wraps up. And, I was like, hey, we're going back at the time of the Trump Hotel in D.C. They're like, hey, Ted, you want to come back? We're going to, go have some drinks at the Trump Hotel. Have a good... And he came.
Yeah.
And he hung out with us, and we actually had a great time. Then he worked very hard for us. He was just he was a great, as a senator in the administration. And we became good friends. So this sort of terrible way things started turned into a great relationship.
Right.
And then, you had that Beto race. And I was telling you before we got on the stage, and he was like, hey, Don, can you guys come down and help out? I was like, how can it be tight? I mean, this guy's an idiot, but it doesn't matter. And so I was with Ted, and we did 4 events one day, and they got the reporting numbers, I guess, for the month or for the quarter or whatever it is. And Ted goes, we got great news. We literally raised the most money of any politician in Texas state history ever, and and I was like, well, so what was it? It was like $12.5 million. Like, wow, it seems like a lot of money in a Senate race. That's a great question.
And
well
it
done,
was.
So we're all kind of euphoric. Yeah. We go give another speech somewhere else, and I'm speaking, Ted's speaking. We're getting a good time. We get back on the bus, and the numbers for Beto O'Rourke come in. None from Texas, but it was like $37 million. I'm like, all of that, again, from out of state. So.
Hollywood, George
Hollywood,
Soros,
everything. And so, it just solidified, hey, we got to get in there. I got on the phone with my dad. It's like, hey, you got to get down there. They had that incredible rally, I think, right, in Houston, I think it was, and made that happen. And then I see polling that I don't necessarily believe. I believe it's designed to be demoralizing, but, it's within a point for, in Texas or Texas. I mean, it can't be. But, we have to 100% do it. We have to be involved. I don't want to win the presidency without the Senate and the House, guys. I've been there. I've done my 50 hours of congressional testimony. Yeah. We got to win everything down to dog catcher. We got to win our state legislatures. We got to win our school boards. So get involved in that. Again, I don't want to just win the it's not about, great, get Donald Trump in there. Donald Trump without the Senate, without the House, will have another 4 years of impeachment inquiries, Russia to the 12th, whatever it may be. So we have to get in there, across the board. So thank you so much, guys. Make sure you do that. Let's make sure we keep Ted in the Senate.
We're going to get it done.
And keep fighting.
We're going to get it done. Let's give Don Jr. a round of applause.
Thank you again, guys. Really appreciate it. Thank you.